Good morning. Um, you sent me in 3 times to see. I thought at first they're doing like a little year in review thing on MSNBC, and they said all the things that were like didn't pass or whatever, and they asked like, oh gee, but they asked one of the people like uh, in their discussion that they have of what's happening. They said, yes, so with the Congress, so what, so is any immigration reform going to pass? Whatever happened to the like things that haven't passed yet? No, nothing's been changed about, that what they call comprehensive immigration reform. As the woman said, like, you know, this is how they talk. It's the politics of it, but with nothing. But the way it's the way they say it. She said, "Well, she said, she said, well, immigration reform." She said it's not likely to pass because these midterm elections, like with all the incumbent Republicans, they're going to be looking over their right shoulder. You know what I mean? And he's like, "Yeah." And she's like, "So I don't think it's likely that it would pass." Time out. Like that's why like people don't really watch the news or whatever before this. Like the we looked at the thing that was were trying to pass. So there's so many things. First of all, I would like to check the status of that Dream Act. I'm not sure that it didn't apparently isn't going to pass either. But like I looked, I remember in an earlier video we printed out the bill, the immigration bill, like one of the proposed bills. The amount of different ways in which immigrants are documented and undocumented and so forth, and would be the amount of things that needed to be addressed and the bad things that would happen to human beings, like if the bill wasn't passed, even though that was just a draft of the bill, but it was all kinds of things. It had a whole table of contents of the different, and you picture like, oh wow, this would if it doesn't pass, like this is still a danger that such people are in, like this, that, the other thing, like deportation, but it was applied to so many different things that were in there that it wasn't just like comprehensive immigration reform, like just you saying that. No. There are tons of things you never thought of that affect people like who don't yet have citizenship, or even ones that do, those kind of things. So, but the way the way that's not really news. It's people talking about the politics of it, like the way in which the politicians are doing their like game is what the topic is. She said as though it's no big deal. Like, yeah, it's not likely that any of that'll pass because, well, why? Why exactly? She said it doesn't even make the midterm elections are there, and there's a lot of Republican incumbents, and they always find a cute way to say something like about something serious. He said they're gonna be looking over their right shoulder, meaning like, look, they're looking to keep their Senate seat, and like, there's a lot of there's a lot of these unemployed bigots with binoculars who stand at the border like they're in a militia and like are unemployed and are racist against immigrants. Like, so the thing is, yeah, these Republican incumbents aren't really gonna be able to get past any of that because that's what it means. The midterm elections are coming up, and they're going to be looking over their right shoulder. They're not. She means the political right, but in our country, what that means is like unemployed white bigots with binoculars who hate foreigners. But that they say it like it's no big deal. Remember we looked over the bill, like all the different things you think of, like the ways in which, like people who are in the country but are undocumented, like the ways in which they be harmed or ways in which you didn't think of that they need not just what they call a path to citizenship, but all kinds of things are involved. And they just say like it's no big deal. Like you're gonna look over their right shoulder. What's over their right shoulder? Speaking as someone who like knows a lot about what it means to be on the political right for real and has been called the right wing nut. Okay, what does it mean they're gonna be looking over their right shoulder and that's why nothing on immigration will get done by our Senate? What does it mean? Looking over your right shoulder means there's an army of idiots who don't like immigrants that vote. I think voting rights should be taken away from certain types of people in our country who are just clearly like people who hold on would make it impossible for like serious reform to get passed because there's some kind of irrational defective element in the population, like a type of defective like who has views that would indicate they're not thinking clearly and have a lot of like prejudices and like butt their nose into things that don't really affect them because they're pissed off about other things. People like that maybe shouldn't vote. It's the type of person they're voting on their own resentments about why their own economic conditions aren't good, but they think that instead of getting congressmen that know about how to get really get jobs back for such people, they're unemployed and angry and they happen to hate immigrants. And there's someone running in that seat. That's not really okay that they say it like it's nonchalant. That's not acceptable. That's why a giant that's why nothing will happen on immigration. They'll be looking over their right shoulder. I to wake up to that. I mean, you sent me in 3 times. That's not really acceptable. That's not really. That means we have that wing of our government, the legislative branch. Chomsky's right. We could consider that like what's meant by a failed state. Democratic forms, but only in structure. It doesn't function because like it just does. It exists in form. We have a legislative branch, but it doesn't function at all. That's called. So we're getting very close to a failed state, meaning like when so it's like Afghanistan or something. That's some of the state when the Taliban are running Afghanistan. They say it's really a failed state. I mean, they don't really control the government or get anything done. They just took over the government buildings and harass people. It's not really a government. That kind of thing. I don't want to be like I don't want to really resemble Afghanistan. I like it to be like more like we lived in an industrialized country with good values.